Reopening schools, like every other aspect of life, will be much easier when we have a solution to the COVID-19 pandemic, meaning a treatment or vaccine and more effective testing. So I want to speak to someone on the front lines. Oliver De Peyer is a molecular biologist in the UK. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. I just want to know, you're there in the lab day after day. Give us a sense of what it's like to be there in that high pressure and often dangerous environment.
So it is a very exciting, bustling environment, our main thing we have at our hospital in Basingstoke we don't do elsewhere is we can do very rapid testing. We are partnered with some local industry nearby, a company called Optogene, and that gave us a test that gives a result in as quick as 20 minutes. So, then it went into supercharge. That equipment can be miniaturized. We have a van, we call it Vandemic, and Vandemic drives around the local community, GPs, old people's homes, and we also do some pilot community studies just in the community itself. And using this equipment, we have that much higher turnover. So we can effectively saturate the entire local environment and all the patients coming in and out of the hospital with testing on our equipment. So it's been a really hectic, exhilarating ride.
Describe, we're seeing some machines behind you, equipment and so on. Just describe where exactly you are and what that does.
So I'm actually in a workshop in a company nearby where we build lab automation equipment. What you see behind me would be a very high throughput machine for a really big testing facility, and the work I've helped set up at Hampshire, I've been a small part of that project at Basingstoke Hospital, that was on the small scale with these Optogene mobile testing units. And this is the big difference. In the United States, you might have turnaround times of 11 days, 14 days. In the big main centralized testing labs in the UK, they've got a guaranteed turnaround of 3 days. And we've got a turnaround time using our equipment and our localized approach of really 5-6 hours. So we're catching people with or without symptoms. If they've got coronavirus, we're catching them and we can manage their disease much earlier, and then they're not at danger of infecting other people.
Yeah. We always think about, fighting the virus. We think of vaccines and treatments, but testing really is at the core of fighting this, and quick testing as well. Is what you're doing scalable? Is that something that we could see sort of across the country and in places like the US where it's a real concern?
So that's a very insightful comment. The reason we were able to do it at Basingstoke is that our suppliers are literally a car ride away. And when we run out of chemicals or where they have a new prototype for us, we drive over and get it. And a lot of the mainstream suppliers all around the world, they were just sold out, or their supply lines had broken down because they were shut down because of the epidemic. So we were able to source locally. So my advice to testing labs around the world is, what can supply you nearby? Now, the Optogene kit we have is excellent. I don't think Optogene can supply equipment for the entire world. Maybe they can license it. We've got the technology. The paper describing our work is in press now. But where can you find it? The breakdown in supply chains was really quite frightening early on in the epidemic, and we're so grateful to companies like Optogene who can support us in our local environment. It's a local effort.
Now, I want to get at sort of the emotional component of what you do. You're there at the moment of discovery where you see those test results come through. What's that like? Because you know very well, probably better than the patients themselves, what they may be in for if it's a positive result.
So the tests are anonymized. We just deal with barcodes, but at that moment when we've done this rapid test, every 20 minutes, we have a big flat screen display and it updates. And sometimes, if I've got a spare moment, I go and stand there and I wait for the clock to turn over. And then for the first time, I see the human impact. I see their names. I see their ages. I see the community setting that they're in. And we actually sometimes see, outbreaks occurring in real time. And that's a deeply chastening moment. You know what? Then I have to turn around and go back in the room and do the next batch. So it's hectic and it's exhilarating, but it's also deeply chastening to see the human cost.
Chastening, and it must be hard as well to deal with the emotions. You're there in a dangerous environment, working under pressure, and as well, everyone's expecting results from you. How do you deal with all this pressure?
Well, early on, I think I was doing what a lot of people were doing, and I was surfing the internet obsessively for scientific papers and stories about coronavirus. Somebody called it doom surfing, and I decided I was going to stop that. I couldn't handle it. So I turn off. I go into the lab, I do my shift, and then I go out, and I try not to think about coronavirus until the next shift. I have some scientific hobbies. Myself and some colleagues, we look for interesting bacteria in unusual locations as a hobby. But I try not to think about coronavirus. That's my approach.
That's a interesting hobby. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your work out there helping to keep everybody safe in these troubling times. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your call. Thank you.
All right.